is Behind the Mic. Local and worldwide interviews with athletes, entertainers, and you. A talk show that will engage, inform, and take you to the edge, maybe even over. Now, from the Big Z studios in suburban Chicago, here's the host of Behind the Mic, Gary Zahara.
Welcome in another week, another episode of Behind the Mic. I'm your host, Gary Zahara. Thanks for joining me. You know, when I was talking to the Z-Force media team as we were putting this show together, logistics, my guest this week was at the top of my list. And, you know, in my opinion, one of, if not the greatest character actors in the last 20 plus years in television. He's now crisscrossing the country on a very popular one-man show, The Death of Me Yet. David Dean Bottrell joins me next.
Brought to you by Team Keys and your financial services division manager, Whitley Brooks Edmunson, and Slugmaster, turning batters into hitters. Log on to slugmaster.com for a dealer near you.
His book is Working Actor, Breaking In, Making a Living, and Making Life in the Trenches of Show Business is a must for any aspiring actor and actress. Law and Order, SVU, Modern Family, Mad About You, and Mad Men are just some of the shows on this guy's resume, but he's appeared on 3 of my top 5 shows of all time: The Blacklist, Justified, and Boston Legal. Please welcome actor, author, comedian, and award-winning screenwriter David Dean Bottrell. David, good to talk to you.
Good to see you, Gary.
Welcome in. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it so much. I mean, it's in the opening, I said, when I talked about bringing the show on the air, you were one of the guys that I wanted immediately. I've obviously followed your career since the immortal Lincoln Meyer made his appearance on Boston Legal back in 2006. And I've been following your career through Justified and some of the other shows and movies that you've been in. But I really appreciate coming in. How you been? How's things going? What's going on in New York right now?
Well, it's, the heat seems to be breaking. It was pretty warm here for a while, but we had a lot of rain, and so that's a little bit better. I've been really busy. I've had a really busy few months lately, which has been great. I had a couple of movie jobs that were back to back, and both of them were out of town. So I did a little bit of traveling, and I did some shows in LA, and now I'm back, and I'm about to do some more shows, and it's been kind of nutty lately, but it's all good.
I
No
was
complaints.
talking about your shows and your run in LA, The Death of Me Yet. How was that? And I know you got some shows planned. I think you're going to be in Nantucket, Rhode Island, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Nantucket, and then I'm in Portland, Maine
Okay,
after that.
Portland, Maine.
I started doing. I've done several of these shows before. I shouldn't say several. I've done 3 of them before, and this is number 3. And I did it. It debuted in New York last year, and it did really, really well. And then I got some interest to take it to California, so I did, and that run sold out. So they asked me to come back, which is why I was back there again. And now it's starting to get picked up at other theaters around the country, which is pretty fun. And it looks like we're going to be doing it into maybe January of next year, here and there, as soon as all the dates are locked down. But it looks like I might be going to Seattle, and it looks like I'm going to go to Palm Springs and some other fun places. So fingers crossed.
Some of the reviews I've seen looks like you're going to be busy for a while on that show.
I hope so. I really love doing it. It's really a fun show. I mean, just to explain to people what this is I started this a while ago now, actually. I started doing the storytelling circuit, like The Moth, that kind of thing. And I told a story one night that, I don't know, it just kind of hit the crowd in a way that I wasn't expecting it to. And it was a love story, essentially. And then I thought, I wonder if I have like enough love stories in my life to make an actual show. And I did that. I strung some together into this like 75-minute, 80-minute storytelling show. And it turned out to be a big hit. And I did that for off and on for about several years. And then I had a couple of more ideas, and I just started doing these shows. And I got to say, it's been life-changing. It's me standing on stage for 75, 80 minutes, telling true stories out of my life. And they're usually strung around some kind of a theme. And The Death of Me Yet is, it's like 5 stories that are kind of interlinked about either my experience with somebody else's death, or a couple of times when I kind of came close to death myself. And so it's been amazing, and it's very uplifting. It's very, positive and reinforcing, very life affirming. And people have really dug it. So I both the critics and the audiences have really dug it. So here we go. We'll see what happens next.
You mentioned early on in your career and using those stories, true life stories for you. So your journey starts in Louisa, Kentucky. So as the song goes, "Unjustified," is that where the deep dark hills of Eastern Kentucky were?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Louisa sits right on the West Virginia border.
Right.
It literally is like right on a river town. And I don't really remember anything from that place. I was like 4 years old when we left. But my dad's work moved us around a bit. And he was a minister at first, and then he went to work for the department. Well, first he was a forest ranger, and then he went to work for the Department of Agriculture. But all those jobs moved us mostly to small places in Kentucky and in Southern Ohio. And so we moved around a bit, but we were usually in pretty small places because it was, Department of Agriculture. So, but that was the beginning of it. And the beginning of that moving around for those who've had, either a military background or had a, situation where they moved around a lot in their childhood. It's a lot of changing schools, and it's a lot of like making new friends. And it's kind of interesting. It does kind of shape you as a person. You kind of learn how to, I don't know. I think the sad part is you learn how to make people like you. That's and then the other part is it's kind of good because you aren't afraid to talk to people, which is good, or you become that way eventually anyway. So it was kind of an interesting way to grow up in a lot of ways.
So the journey from Louisa, then Austin, and then 20 years old to the Big Apple. What motivated somebody, what motivated a David Dean Bottrell from Louisa to Austin, Texas to get to New York?
Okay. Well, I quite by accident in high school. I was a pretty reserved, kind of quiet kid, and I thought I wanted to be a painter or like a graphic artist or something like that. And then I kind of accidentally wound up in this school play, and it was a comedy. And I had a line. My first line was funny, and that was it. When I heard that audience laugh, that was it. Because I went from being invisible to being very visible like overnight at that high school. And I liked the feeling of that. And so then I went to school for drama out in Texas, but I didn't really like this. I didn't like being in, I never did like school all that much, to tell you the truth. And I didn't like drama school any better. And so I dropped out after a year, but I was living in Austin, Texas. And for anybody who knows Austin, Texas, it's one of the greatest cities in this country. It's just an amazing town. And culturally, it's really incredible too. And they had a very happening theater scene there. And so although I wasn't in school anymore, I stayed in Austin for about 2 more years, and I acted in all these plays and did all kinds of wonderful roles there, even though I was a very young guy. And I just got to the place. I had an experience where I had a day job, and I showed up for a performance, and I was absolutely exhausted. I just was fried, and I remember just feeling so tired, not really wanting to be there. And then I stepped out for my first entrance, and the way the play was staged, it was kind of in the round. And so when you stepped out, you were really aware of the audience. You could see them; they were all around you.
Mhm.
And I saw all these heads turn toward me as I walked out, and they were smiling. And I suddenly felt this kind of big wave of goodwill, and it was very energizing. And I thought, I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all anymore. I'm thrilled to be here. And it was just kind of a magical thing. And that was the night that I thought, maybe I should give this a shot.
When you left Austin, you got your chops there and started a little bit, but then when you got to New York, is that how you saw your career start in theater before you wanted to get into TVs and music,
Yeah,
movies?
yeah, absolutely. I went to New York because it was always kind of I was always kind of fascinated with New York. Even when I was a kid, I was fascinated the Empire State Building, and I knew all kind of ridiculous trivia about the Empire State Building and the Statue of Liberty and things like that. But I did get here eventually, and I started studying with a pretty big deal acting teacher, and that's how it began. Is I started to do plays, and in those days there was a very healthy circuit, which is like there is in Chicago. There's an enormous amount of theater in Chicago. And there was at that time when I was a youngster, there was quite a bit of theater all over the East Coast. So I started working in those theaters first, and I would get jobbed out of New York. But boy, it was great experience. I learned a lot because you would go out and you do these shows, and you once you were rehearsed and up on your feet, you like knocked out 8 shows a week, and that's a lot. And but boy, you learn your craft, that's for sure. But that's how it began. Was knocking out those matinees and those 5-show weekends. Woo, that was a lot.
Do you remember your first audition television movies? You remember?
I do remember it. I auditioned for a show. I probably shouldn't say the name of this show. I should probably, just in case those people are still out there somewhere. I auditioned for this show. I was in New York, and these people came from California to audition people to possibly be on their show. And the script was not very good. It really wasn't. It was kind of lame. And I was one of several people, obviously, that auditioned. And I was playing this kind of comic relief, kind of dumb kid who didn't quite know what was going on. And they came, which was, right up my alley. And they came running up to me afterwards, all these people from LA, and saying, "Oh my God, that was hilarious. And are you free to fly to Los Angeles, next week to meet the network and blah, blah, blah." Very exciting stuff. And I was like, "Sure, absolutely." And nothing happened. Like the phone did not ring. And so I thought, okay. And then I don't know, 6 months later, I ran into the casting director who was casting that project.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Hey, can I ask you something? Whatever happened to that show? They seem so excited." And he said, "Yeah, they came in from LA and they auditioned all these New York actors, and they loved everybody. They loved them. They said, 'Wow, they're so talented. They really can take this material and really make it amazing,' And I said, 'Oh, great.' And the guy said, 'But they decided to go a different way with the casting.' And I said, I didn't know what that meant. And I said, what do you mean they went a different way? And he said, 'Well, they decided to cast really good-looking people.'" So when that show came on the air,
Okay.
I did watch it, and they just absolutely emptied the modeling agency. I mean,
Really?
everybody was amazing looking, but nobody was very good, and that material wasn't very good. And it only lasted like 3 episodes. But that was
Okay.
my first one.
Well, sooner or later, I'm going to get that out of you if I have you back on the show down the line somewhere. And as I was doing some research on your career, and I've had this movie in my DVD collection, and I saw that you were just credited as man number 3, and this movie was "And the Band Played On." I mean, incredible cast. Matthew
Yeah.
Modine, Alan Alda, Ian McClellan, who's no longer with us, Richard Gere, Steve Martin, Angelica Houston, Lily Tomlin, Phil Collins, and B.D. Wong. It was a small role for you. You got to yell out something, but
Yeah.
do you look at that and say that's maybe a kickstart to your career?
It was an amazing experience. I'll say that. That was I think my second camera job. I had done head of the class before that, but
Right.
but this I auditioned for a larger role that was really kind of amazing, of someone who was being given their diagnosis. This kid who was being told that he had AIDS at a time when there was no cure for AIDS,
Mm-hmm.
and no treatment for AIDS. And and it was big, heavy duty emotional scene. And I read for it, and the director was very kind to me. And then I forget now whether that scene was cut or they just wound up casting somebody else. But anyway, it didn't happen. And but he had the casting director call me and say, "Well, would you like to be in this? Like, I can put you in it somewhere. It may just be one line." And I was sure, I'd love to be in it. And it wound up being this one line. And in the scene that I had this one line in, I think, who else was in it? Ian McKellen, who, by the way, is still with us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he passed away.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He's still with
sorry,
us.
Ian.
That's okay. He's still with us. Ian McKellen. These are the other people in the scene: Ian McKellen, Phil Collins,
Yeah, Phil Collins. Yeah.
Matthew Modine, and Lily Tomlin. were the other actors in the scene and me. And I just had the one line, and I have to tell you, in my entire career, I've never been so frightened of forgetting a line as that, because I thought, oh my God, there's all these people, and I can't goof this up.
Was it
But it was remarkable.
was this a kind of movie that hit close to home for you? And I know that you came out as a gay man starting out in Hollywood. Was it difficult for you?
It was it was kind of exciting, to be honest with you, because um,
Was
there
that
had been
movie ahead of
so.
its time, David? Do you think?
I think it was right on time.
Right. Okay.
You know, it wasn't the very first film made about AIDS, but it was about a very controversial thing regarding the discovery of the virus, and how that had become this political kind of football in the medical profession, and how they actually had slowed research because they were trying to fight over who got credit for it. It was kind of a not a terribly redeeming story for those people, but it was important that people knew. You
Right.
know, it was important that people knew that we have to, like, we got to be brave when we're, as a society, we got to be brave when these things happen. Like we were
I
brave,
thought it
and
was a powerful story. You
it's
look at
very
the
powerful.
you look at the cast, but you look at the writing and the way it happened. I mean, you had Ian in those scenes, and
Yeah,
Matthew Modine, who was playing God, what was Doctor? I just watched it yesterday, and I'm
it's
having a brain blank.
okay. I couldn't
Uh,
tell you their names right now either.
you
But
know,
I'll tell you
go ahead.
what was great about that was that cast. Everybody worked for minimum. Everybody did it for the minimum amount of money that the union pays, because they wanted to be part of it, and it was a remarkable experience, and it was a remarkable group of people for sure. And I was very, very proud to be associated with it.
You
And it
had
was
you
a,
s- you mentioned that you had some difficulties early on in your career, as so now as your career has expanded and we're looking at 2024, is it easier for you personally and if for other gay actors in Hollywood for to make their mark?
it's a whole new day. I mean, it really, when I was first beginning, I was never really in the closet exactly, but I was encouraged by people, agents and things like that, to say, oh, well, dial it down, and, like, don't make people uncomfortable, and just don't, kind of, don't ask, don't tell, sort of was the policy.
Right, right.
And that's what most of us were advised to do in those days. And I'm so happy to have to be alive and to be working in 2004, because that's all over with. That's all gone now. And when you have people like, Jane Lynch, and, my God, the list is long, Matt Bomer, and it goes on and on and on, Neil Patrick Harris, who have achieved, like, huge success. I mean, these people are really, at top of their game, and the river flows to them, and none of them have any need for that. And so I'm happy that that's gone. That's finally gone, and you can just have a career and be who you are. And if you're talented, you will work, and that's really the bottom line now. And I'm so happy for it. And I teach from time to time. I'm not teaching at the moment, but I have students, who are gay and lesbian and bisexual, and everything in that LGBTQ plus range. They're all
Mhm.
over the place. And I always tell them, you got to bring who you are. You got to be who you are in order to be good. You've got to bring it. And so don't be afraid of it anymore. And it's
And you
kind of a cool thing.
and you talk about teaching. Oh, you led me right into the next question about teaching acting. What gives you the most satisfaction in that?
You mean in the
Uh,
world?
no, well, just teaching teaching acting
Oh, on
to
teaching
yeah,
acting?
yeah. Mhm.
It's I think it's when I see somebody achieve what I would call freedom, when they really sort of take flight, and they're not trying to please me, and they're not trying to give a brilliant performance. They actually just inhabit it. Like, whatever the story is that's being told, they step into it, and they step into it fully. And that's hard to, that takes time. And not every, that's, many are called to try acting, but not everybody has all the components at the same time that they need. And but when somebody takes off, it's really quite beautiful. I've got several students now who are doing quite well out there in the world, or former students of mine, I should say. They're doing quite well out there in the world, and I'm just so proud of them all. I'm proud of all of them, even the ones that are still kind of struggling. I'm proud of them too, because it's a dream that, if it's in you, you got to pursue it.
Were the early struggles in your acting career the motivation to write Working Actor?
No, teaching actually did that because I had so many students who, like, when I teach in a couple of conservatories, and so when it comes time to graduate, you start getting these emails about like, hey, could I possibly like take you out for a cup of coffee? I got a couple of questions, and I always knew what was coming because they were going to say, hey, what's the secret to success, or what should I do to like be, a professional? And they're always so disappointed when I would tell them, really the only way to start is to start. You just start, and then you everybody's path is completely unique. You start and you kind of, everybody navigates it their own way, but just begin and try to swim in the direction you want to go, and eventually it either is going to work out or you're going to find a much better path for yourself, but go that way, like just start, begin. But I realized in doing it also, that I had quite a few stories because I'm a big fan of stories, and I didn't want to write the traditional kind of book, that has been written about how to be in show business and all that. So every chapter of my book starts with a story, and then it's like, and here's why I'm telling you that story. It's because there's a point to that story, and here it is. And I've had great response to the book. I'm really, really proud of it. I'm very, very pleased that a lot of people have, it's really helped them kind of understand what they're getting into.
Early in the conversation, you said you had a couple movie roles that you just finished, and I looked at your acting credits, mostly TV. Is the TV big screen? What's the disconnect in your career? Do you just like doing TV more, or is it just
It's it's what that happens to, so many people, that like you have a little success in something, and then that usually repeats itself. And sometimes you transition into other things, and sometimes you do not. I certainly have not, shied away from movie stuff, but I just haven't done that many. Mostly the films I've done have been independent films, and the last two films I did were also independent films. So it's sometimes you see them again, and sometimes you never see them again, or sometimes they wind up, buried in Netflix somewhere, or sometimes they go to the film festivals and you never see them again after that. We'll see what happens with these two. I would suspect that one of these might actually be seen, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But I had a great time, and
in
that's
in the last 5 to 10 years? What kind of movies did you audition for? Any big ones that you can tell us about? Or?
I've auditioned for very few movies in the last few years. I am primarily known as like a television actor, and
Right.
that's just because that's kind of what happened. Like the first kind of big splash that happened to me happened on television. So that's where most of the incoming calls are. And I'm sure I have auditioned. I mean, when I was a youngster in the 80s, I had a run of auditioning for all these kind of films that became big, sort of iconic, 80s movies. I was things like, Mask. I auditioned for that, and I auditioned for um, Platoon, and a whole bunch of those like
Really? Wow.
movies that had young men in them. I didn't book them, but in a couple of cases, I came very close. But yeah, but that's mostly been a TV career, which is okay. I like TV. Actually, I like the speed of it.
Either way you look at it, work is work. You're getting work. So whether if it's movies or TV, you're still getting hired.
It is, and TV is seen by about 1 billion more people than see you in a movie.
Right.
It's really true.
Right. So
The audience is
in the beginning of this our conversation, I told you you were on the three of my top five shows: Justified, Boston Legal, and The Blacklist. The other
yeah.
two of that round out the five are L.A. Law and NYPD Blue. So I want to talk about Justified. And you and I, when we first connected and started talking, and I brought up working with Tim Oliphant here in Chicago when Primeval was shooting, I got an opportunity to do 3 or 4 scenes with him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, getting some camera love, even though they saw the back of my head and my big fat ass, but I'll take it anyway. I mean, I walked away from him. But doing Justified, since you told me the character Alvin, since you're from Kentucky, you have that kind of Kentucky accent, the Eastern Kentucky accent. Was it easy for you just to come into that role?
Yeah, I was thrilled. I loved that show, and I think that was the first TV show that I remember that was set in Kentucky.
Right.
And granted, it was set in kind of a fictionalized Kentucky, a little, a little more dramatic than what usually happens there. But I was dying to be on it, and so I had this new agent, and he was really trying hard to get me sort of out of the Lincoln Meyer mode a little bit.
Right.
And so he pushed for this audition, and I got the material and I read it, and it was completely wrong for me. Like I read it and I thought, I'm never going to get this role in a million years. So I thought, okay, the only way I'm going to get this is if I do something different than how it's written. And that is exactly what I did. The guy was kind of written as this kind of sleazy kind of amateur pornographer,
Mm-hmm.
and I played him as this kind of like shy, kind of nerdy guy who works at the 7-Eleven who has this little secret, fetish. And
Figure
it
studies and tasteful boudoir shots and stuff.
exactly, and it was very different, and I thought, okay, here we go. And then I got it, and when I got it, and when I met the producers and the director and all that, they said, we cast you because you broke our heart. Like, we never saw that coming. We thought this guy was going to be this sleazy guy, and we were going to be happy when he got the shit beaten out of him. And instead we felt really bad. We really felt bad for you. And so that was kind of a great experience. And I for a while there, that was, well, I guess it still is my policy largely. I don't really try to get the part anymore. I just try to do it in a way that kind of fits me. And I find that works much better than trying to second guess what people might possibly want from you,
If people were to go and see Lincoln Meyer on Boston Legal and then come and see you as Alvin and Justify, they're going to be like, "Wow, unbelievable!" Because when in that scene, and I don't know if you remember, I just watched it just to brush up on it, but it was you were obviously she was flirting with you because her boyfriend wanted to come in and steal some champagne or whatever, and he
Right.
walks in and he goes and you look at him, you go from your nice guy to the woman to him walking in and he asks where the booze is at, and you're like, in the back, chief. You're just a quick change of being, the nice guy to being like a guy in Kentucky who hates his customers.
Right.
It's
Right.
an amazing scene. So, it's
Thank you.
in the back, chief, like, okay.
Thank you. Thank
So
you very much.
yeah, but
I,
that
I
show,
was
go ahead.
I was going to say I loved that. I loved that whole thing. But my favorite scene was when after I'd been beaten up and I was in the ambulance or sitting on the stretcher. That was my
Right.
favorite scene in the shot.
Right. Cause you
And
thought you
Tim, by
had
the
something in
way,
common with her. Right. Yeah. You thought maybe you
Tim
guys
is
had something
lovely.
in
I mean, he's a
common. Yeah.
lovely, lovely guy, as well, having worked with him.
Yeah.
But he's a really, really nice guy. And I think the last time I saw, he had the same acting teacher that I did.
Really.
And I think the last time I saw him, I think, was at Bill's funeral, actually years ago. We chatted just very briefly at that. But he's a swell guy and a tremendous actor.
Do you agree with this statement? I say this to everybody when I talk about Justified. I thought it was when I first, my girl turned me on to the series. And when I first watched it, I was like, what the hell is this? I thought it was Little House on the Prairie with booze, drugs, and sex. What do you think?
Well, that's kind of, there's some truth to that.
Minus the chuck wagon, right? You know what I'm saying? So,
Minus, yeah.
yeah,
What I liked about it was I don't know that this is true now, but certainly when I was a kid, um, some of the places we lived, uh, you know, law enforcement settled some things, but some things were just settled outside of law
right.
enforcement. And so I liked the fact that that character that he played, I can't think of the guy's name now, but anyway, the character that Tim played,
Oh,
um,
Raylan Givens.
Raylan, thank you,
Yes.
that there was always justice. He sometimes went outside the law, but he always achieved justice. And I thought that was kind of a really cool, kind of dangerous, I guess, idea. But for purposes of entertainment, it was pretty fulfilling.
Basically, he's justifying everything he's doing, and hence the name of the show. So, I mean, the writing was incredible, and Walton Goggins as well. And I think, I saw an interview with Walton Goggins said that he didn't want to come on the show to do that character because he was from the South and he thought it was disrespectful the way they did it. But he said Tim talked him into it. And I just, the writing, ever since like NYPD Blue, Boston Legal, and now Justified are probably the three, in my opinion, the three best written shows in TV history. It's incredible.
I agree. Things really turned in the '90s. They really, really turned. That was the beginning of it for sure. And now there's remarkable writing on television. Really remarkable.
Do you keep, you said you kept in touch with Tim when you went to the funeral. Did you talk with Walton at all?
You know, I don't really know Walton. I've met him, but he seemed like a really nice guy. But I can't say that I know him. No.
Okay. Here's the next question I'm going to ask you. It's a two-part question. Best advice that you've gotten in your life and your career.
Wow. Wow. That's big.
David, I'm bringing the real stuff to you here. So,
the best advice that I got in my life was somebody who once said to me, "Stop looking and start finding," and that was profound to me. It really changed the way that I looked at everything. And in my career, I think the best advice that I ever got was never try to get the job.
really?
Don't try, you know? And what I mean by that is when you're auditioning, it is your job. It's your role. For those 3, 4, 5 minutes, it's yours. And if that's what you got into it to do, if you got into it because you wanted to play these kind of characters, well, here you go, buddy. Play it. Play it. It's yours. And don't worry, don't try to please anybody. Just do this character justice. Do it justice, you know? And that was a totally big game changer for me.
Actor, comedian, and screenwriter David Dean Bottrell joining me for a few more minutes here on Behind the Mic. I'm your host, Gary Zahara. Okay. Obviously, you know where we're going with this. We're gonna talk about. We got a few more segments to go, but Lincoln Meyer,
Sure.
was something I was thinking about. First of all, again, like I said, probably one of the greatest characters in the last 20 years. Do not understand how you did not win a Primetime Emmy Award either. Number one, but was that audition? Did you have to audition for Lincoln, or was that part written for you by David E. Kelly and all the writers?
I auditioned for it. And that was another thing where I had left acting. I'd been gone for the better part of a decade from acting. And I had become a screenwriter. And I was having quite a bit of success with that. And the phone rang one day, and it was a casting director who remembered me from my stage work and said, "Would you come in and read for this?" And I said no. And she was very persistent and really, really kind of twisted my arm to come in. And she sent me the material, and I read it, and I thought, there's no fucking way I'm going to book this. Like, I don't even really want to do this, you know?
Right.
And I won't bore you with, that's a kind of a long story, which I won't bore you with, but there was a whole description of what this character was,
Right.
what they wanted to have happen. And I didn't do any of it. I did not one bit of it. And I instead just based him on somebody that I used to work for when I was putting myself through acting school. And I did catering work, as many young people do. And I used to bartend for this absolutely eccentric, crazy guy. And he spoke in that accent that I used as Lincoln. And he was a total alcoholic, but he was also totally delusional. And the more he drank, the more he spoke with this ridiculous confidence about subjects he knew nothing about. And I always found him quite a character, you know, and I enjoyed working for him, actually. And so I thought, I'm just going to do him. I'm going to take him into the audition. And that's what I did. And I noticed as soon as I started speaking with the confidence that guy had, the real guy, it was hilarious. I knew it immediately. Like when I started, even in my home when I was rehearsing this, I thought, this is fucking funny. And I took it in, and I read for them, and they fell on the floor, and they kept saying, "Can you do that again? Could you say that? Could you do those lines again?" And like nobody was giving me any direction or anything. They just say, "Can you do it again? Can you?" And I just did it again and again, and finally they let me go. They kept me in there a long time, and they let me go. And I walked out to like pick up my belongings and leave. And somebody came running out the door and said, "Hey, can you stay in this neighborhood for 2 hours?" I said, "Why?" And they said, "I can't tell you that, but can you stay in this neighborhood for 2 hours?" I was like, "Okay." So I went to the Starbucks for 2 hours, and then came, and they called me up and said, "Go right to wardrobe. Just go straight to wardrobe. You're going to do this."
How about
And it
that?
was supposed to be one episode, but David Kelly thought that I was funny. And so that was the beginning of it. And he just, when I got the script, it had been rewritten, and I could tell I was going to come back. And I just kept coming back. And it was an absolutely remarkable experience.
I mean, how many effeminate Truman Capotes were auditioning for this part? You know what I mean,
I
Dave?
don't know. I don't know.
That was an
I didn't.
interesting way to describe you. And I saw that. I read that. I guess it's one of your friends who said that about you.
That was the description.
Yeah.
That's what they were looking for. And that's not what I did. I did something very different, but thank God I did, thank God I did. I mean,
So
everything I've done since is based on that.
you talked about that you were going to go in for just one episode, and as I was rewatching the show and rewatching your episode arc, it looked like it was just you going to be you for a couple of lines, and then that would be it. But all of a sudden, it just kept on growing and growing and growing. And then, did you know it was going to be 8 episodes?
No, no, not at all. It was kind of it was an episode by episode thing. And then at a certain point, I knew that we were getting in pretty deep, given all the stuff that I was getting involved with.
I don't
But
think
it
I
wound
like
up
your
being 8.
tenor.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It wound up being 8, and it was. I mean, it was extraordinary. I mean, every week I would get the script, and I would think, "Oh my God!" I was being given some new cliff to jump off of, and that's just amazing. And so he did that, for me. I've never had anybody write for me, and that was the first time that ever happened, and it was an extraordinary experience. And it was, all that, the cast, the people I got to work with,
Oh yeah.
the actors I got to work with, it was amazing.
The
And
writing,
I
the
just
cast,
remember, it's just
Shatner, Spader, William
yeah,
Shatner, James Spader, Candace
Candice
Bergen.
Bergen,
Yeah.
yeah.
How was it like working with now? Okay, we're in 2024. This was back in 2006. Some
Yeah.
of the things in those episodes, some of those jokes and innuendos probably wouldn't fly right
No,
now. But
no,
you know, like the scene where you're standing there because you've been damaged, so you come in and ask for representation, and then William
yes,
Shatner goes, "You're just a wacko fruit," you know what I mean,
yeah,
or whatever he called you, and I'm just like,
yeah,
wow, he's a total fairy, and I'm
yeah,
just like,
yeah,
wow.
yeah,
So Christian
yeah, yeah.
Clemenson's another guy who I like. He's a great actor.
Oh, he's a buddy of mine. I actually
Oh,
know
really?
him.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I would love to
Um,
talk to Christian. He would be a great interview as well. I mean, because
he's
him
great.
and Hans, that
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
those two characters right there. I mean, you look at Shatner and Bergen and Spader, and they run the show. But when you look at
yeah.
Christian's character, your character, I mean, I'm stunned. I'm upset. I don't know why. Maybe you have some stories on why they canceled this episode, this series after 5 seasons, because it was just a hell of a series.
It was a hell of a series. I do know why that happened, which was money. It was not a cheap show to produce, and they basically gave David kind of an ultimatum. They were going to either take the show off after season 4, or he could scale it down. So he scaled it down, and he suddenly the cast went from this large collection of people to a rather small collection of people.
Right.
And he managed to finish the series so he could get 100 episodes, so it could go into syndication and all that. But it was business deal. It was business, which happens. It's unfortunate because that was a remarkable series. But I'm glad that he got to finish it the way he wanted to finish it anyway.
At the end of that series, were they talking about killing you off or bringing you back? I know you just, a
I
little
was sure I was coming back. I
a
was
little.
absolutely sure I was coming back. I in the first draft that I read, I was killed, and then which seemed fitting, but then like all of a sudden they rewrote it and I wasn't dead, and I thought, oh, well, I'm fucking coming back. I
Mhm.
mean, why else? Why else do they keep me alive? And I think there was an intention to do that, but you know, TV shows, they got to do what they got to do. They got to kind of keep shuffling the deck. They got to keep reinventing things. And so I do get it, but I have no regrets. It was it was a game changer for me on so many levels. It was just, I'll always be grateful for that.
Give me your favorite TV show or movie, actually. What would
Wow.
be your best TV show and movie? Your favorite?
Like best TV show ever,
For you, yeah, yeah.
that I've been on.
No. Just what you
Oh, just,
like. Yeah.
oh, what I like. Holy moly, man. That's a tough one. Boston Legal is certainly up there, but I also think of like The Sopranos and like some really incredible television series, and Game of Thrones. There've been some incredible, iconic, like game changer series that really changed the whole industry.
Right.
And those are some of my favorites for sure. And the movie, oh my God, that's such a tough one. That is such a tough one. For a long time, it was American Beauty. I thought that was an extraordinary movie. But now there's so many others that I've seen since then that kind of come to mind. But I tend to like things. I want to say that are game changers, that are really like I haven't seen that before, or it created, like, it was great, it was brilliant, it was great, beautifully written and produced and acted and directed and all that, and it also took people sort of to the edge of what they thought they could handle. and I love that. I love that when that happens,
Mine movie would be Godfather. It's my all-time favorite
Oh,
movie.
it's amazing.
And TV shows, I'm conflicted. NYPD Blue, Boston Legal, and Justified. I have to give NYPD Blue because of the 12-year run. Probably number one. Boston
Yeah.
Legal's got to be two, and I think Justify is right behind it. Primeval, when I worked on it and when I saw the finished product, it was just a different. It was a different feel. I was
Yeah.
based out of Detroit. It wasn't based out of Harlan County. But now that
Right.
Boyd Crowder escaped and he's on the run, I hope you know what, and I might just spend some money to go down to Kentucky, hopefully be an extra on that.
My
And it'd
friend
be
Sharon Lawrence was on NYPD Blue.
yes, Sharon Lawrence,
Very, very dear friend of mine,
who
and
got who got killed off. Yes,
she
yep.
did. She
Take
got
care of
killed
the
off.
baby. Gotta love that show. David Dean Bottrell is my guest. He's actor, comedian, screenwriter, but you know him best as Lincoln Meyer. And we talked about Boston Legal, Justified, and some of the shows he was on. Also, a great movie, still a great movie, and the band played on. But Lincoln, I know that you didn't want to come and talk to me. You're still a little bit upset. It's been since 2006 you've been institutionalized, but a couple of questions I want to ask you, Lincoln. Are you still a benign peepee?
Well, not now. What's there to look at?
Have you made amends with Shirley Schmidt?
Oddly, she doesn't return my calls.
Interesting. I can't imagine why
imagine
Shirley
why.
doesn't want to talk to you. And here's two more questions for you, Lincoln. Have you buried the hatchet with Mr. Dirty Mouth Lawyer Pants Jeffrey Coho?
Well, I tried to bury the hatchet in his head, but I wasn't successful. Now, I'm going to cut out and tell you that that's another person that I've stayed friends with, is Craig Bierko.
Really? Yeah.
I saw him not too long ago.
And for me, I've seen it now. Again, the acting thing just kind of fell in my lap. Back here in suburban Chicago about 3 years ago, tornado destroyed my house, so we moved, and a couple of my friends were involved in a couple of TV shows filming in Chicago PD, Empire. And they told me to throw my stuff in, and for some reason, they called me. I was like, "Wow, it was incredible!" But I don't know how you guys keep straight faces when you do those scenes. Like, I don't know, especially in that interrogation scene. Like, if I was the interrogator asking you what the infield fly rule was, and you go, "I don't know, is it something with a zipper?" I would be losing my shit. I don't.
That guy, whose name I don't remember at this moment, but that guy, I met him like by the trailer, and
Right.
he was on for the day and all that, and he said, "Do you know which way the stage is?" I said, "Yeah, come with me." And so we just walked over, we chatted, we shot the breeze and all that, and we got in our chairs, and then he hadn't seen the show before that, and then suddenly, he asked me the first question, and I responded as Lincoln, And I do remember the expression on his face. And he did have a hard time kind of keeping it together at first. And then when we broke, he said, I had no idea that you were going to talk like that.
Hilarious. I was telling you, you're like, am I going to get one of those sticks and swing it with great force? And I'm like, oh my,
That's the only time that we had that happen. But I've seen other people on the show have a little trouble sometimes. It was
I would, David, I would not be able to keep a straight face if I was an extra, especially if I was sitting there next to you. So, one more question for Lincoln, if you can indulge me.
Yeah.
Lincoln, what would be your legacy?
Reruns, lots and lots of reruns. I get paid for those.
Residuals. Nice. I like it. Okay, we're going to do a feature here, David, before we let you go. Sure. It's called In a Word. If you can answer the question in a word, fine. If you need
I'll give it a shot.
If you need to expand, be my guest. So this is basically in a word, but your 3 parts of your career: actor, comedian, and screenwriter. In a word.
Say that again.
So you're an actor, comedian, and screenwriter. Give me in a word of you being an actor. Like what's it mean?
Oh, got it. Yeah. Got it. In a word?
Yeah.
Thrilled.
There you go. Okay.
All right. Okay.
All right. It's in a word. That's fine.
Thrilled.
Okay. How about being a comedian?
Grateful.
And screenwriter.
Sure. Underpaid.
Really? Screenwriters, are they badly under? Now, you obviously went through the strike. They cut like 13 episodes of all the Chicago shows here during that strike. But, and I saw something, I think you put on your Instagram, or somebody commented with you about the residuals and the streaming and how you guys are getting screwed out of that. And that was still a big factor in trying to secure a new deal.
Well, show business used to be its own little business. It actually was its own little industry, and it's now, Warner Brothers, everything is owned by some conglomerate. Mm-hmm. And so the business has gotten very corporatized. And so it used to be kind of a brotherhood of thieves, so to speak. And now it's this corporate entity, and corporate entities have one agenda, which is do it for less time and less money. And so that is going to be the agenda from this point on. And that is where, thank God we have our unions, and thank God we are able to push back every once in a while, as we just recently did. And now we have AI to compete with on top of everything else. But by God, when we can do it, when they let us do the work, we're very good at it. And we do deserve to be paid well, particularly when we're talking about billions of dollars in profit. It's really not going to break anybody's back to pay us a little bit. But that's a fight for another day. That will just go on forever.
Absolutely. It's In a Word with David Dean Bottrell. David, in a word, living in New York.
Fantastic.
Right. Climate in Hollywood.
Hang on, I got it. It's coming.
And not the temperature, David, not the temperature.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. No. Uneasy.
Wow. You're our 4th guest, and Eric, he's nailing these one-word answers. Okay. Last question for David Dean Bottrell in a word. David Dean Bottrell's legacy.
Laughter.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, laughter.
Laughter.
There's not a chance. Like Boston Legal with you, if I see you come on TV, it's one of those remote drops where I'm just going to sit there and watch your scene and then go off. So I've tried so many times in the last, I don't know how many times I've seen your episodes to try to imitate you. I can't do it. I mean, maybe because my voice is too deep, but I can't do it. There's no way.
God bless.
David, you're on the road. You're going to be going on some shows. Why don't you plug what you're doing, your Facebook, Instagram, people get tickets, talk about what's going to be going on in the next couple of weeks for you.
Okay. Well, just in the very near future, on August 15th, I'm playing in Nantucket. I'm doing my one-man show there. And on August 17th, I'm in Portland at a place called the Footlights Theater there. And please, by all means, come out and buy those tickets. And the other dates I think will be announced shortly, but I don't have them locked in just yet. But you'll be seeing me somewhere soon, I hope, and hopefully back on television relatively quickly as well.
I hope so too, David. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on. I really wanted you to be on the show. Good luck on the one man show, The Death of Me Yet with David Dean Bottrell. Catch him on Instagram. He's on Facebook as well. Great guy to talk to. David, I'm going to have you on the show down the line. We'll keep in touch, and hopefully you come into Chicago and we can catch dinner and catch one of your great shows.
Oh my God, that'd be great. Now, don't let me down. You got to find somebody in Chicago.
Okay, I got to go to Cinespace then and find us anybody who's a producer or wants to bring you into Chicago.
Could find I mean, just any place that's got a stage and an audience and some chairs, we can probably pull it off.
Okay.
But yeah. No, I would love to come and do the show in Chicago. I would love it.
If I get you a place here in Chicago or suburban Chicago, just let me come on stage and introduce you. That's all I want, David.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll be talking to you soon, my friend.
David Dean Bottrell, thanks so much. Good luck to you.
You too, my man.
Brought to you by Team Keys and your financial services division manager, Whitley Brooks Edmondson, and Slugmaster, turning batters into hitters. Log on to slugmaster.com for a dealer near you.
Final thought, once again, a big thank you to David Dean Bottrell for coming on. Great character actor. Do not know why this man does not have an Emmy Award for his portrayal of Lincoln Meyer on Boston Legal. His one-man show, The Death of Me Yet. If you're on the East Coast, he's out there right now. Go to daviddeanbottrell.com. Catch him on Instagram as well. Look for tickets, and hopefully he comes out here into Chicago. Definitely going to catch that show, and we'll catch up with him down the line. I want to throw a shout-out to my boy Tommy Sansone and his band Spun. They were at the Lamont Park District's Summer Soiree concert series. A great show, 2 hours of alternative and rock and roll music. Find them on Facebook, Spun Band. They got the green logo. It's going to be a great show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button. We also have the links in the descriptions at the bottom of this interview on this page for you to join our show and enjoy it. So for all of us here at Behind the Mic, thanks for watching and have a good night.
Behind the Mic has been brought to you by Team Keys and your financial services division manager, Whitley Brooks Edmondson, specializing in affordable insurance and investments. Team Keys, keep elevating yourself. Call 248-403-0919 to book your appointment. And Slugmaster, turning batters into hitters. Log on to slugmaster.com for a dealer near you. Behind the Mic is a Did He Go production, produced by Z-Force Media. Stage manager is Heather Marie. The executive producer of Behind the Mic is Eric Ferguson.